Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and we've got some updates for the farm. Now before we get into the video, I just want to reiterate that this channel is not going to have any sort of regular posting schedule. So understand that if you do subscribe, that I will post videos when I post them, but also I really appreciate it for those of you that do subscribe. Let's get right into it. Now the first update is to the home site part of the farm, and I'm going to plant a bunch of oak trees, or at least that is what I'm going to attempt to do this next spring. I hate grass. It is wasteful and so much maintenance. I mean, this section right here takes so many hours to mow. And I know you guys are gonna be like, hours, question mark. For some reason, the grass here grows just incredibly thick. I don't know why, because it shouldn't, because it's Utah, but for some reason, the grass in this yard grows incredibly thick, so it takes forever to mow. So I want to do a bunch of oak trees. It'll provide an extra layer of privacy, and it'll be a lot less water intensive than this junk right here. Now in terms of the end point, I'm thinking somewhere around here. You guys can see these are all aspen that I didn't get to before winter time. I'll get these in the spring, but the whole aspen colony kind of ends right there. And so what I'm thinking is this is probably where I'll end the oak trees, and I think I'm just going to let the grass in the back just grow. This whole section back here is, and this is why I'm kind of thinking the line here, this section back here is very shaded, and so if I just let the grass grow nice and thick like this, it's not going to require nearly as much water to keep it alive as the stuff here on the front section, which again, this front section doesn't require a lot of water anyways, which has absolutely shocked me. And so I think it'll be killing two birds with one stone, where trees will get rid of the more water intensive section, and then I can just have it grown out in the back where nobody can see it anyways, which I know some of you guys might not like this, but I prefer long grass over short grass. I think it just looks better. So I don't know, I think that's kind of the route to go. Now the next update is this little pile of dirt. This is actually where we buried one of our barn cats. Someone hit it with their car. No one ever came up and told us about it, so I don't know exactly who it was or anything like that. But this is something interesting about having property, is you bury animals on the property rather than having to dispose of them. When you're in the city, you can't really do that because there's not space. But yeah, gravesite for a poor little guy. And speaking of gravesite, this fell off of that tree right there. And I'm going to have to do a burn pile in spring is what I'm planning on doing it, to get rid of that. There's some other weeds and everything that I'll be putting in the burn pile too. And that's another thing in rural areas, is you burn stuff rather than taking it to the dump, as long as it's not nasty stuff like tires. Now the next big update is with the chickens. You guys have probably noticed I have this little cage here in front of the door, and then this I have reinforced. Basically something broke into the coop. It tried to get in on the side here, which I've added some more reinforcement in the areas that it kind of pulled apart. It wasn't able to do it, but because the door doesn't have mesh that goes into the ground like the rest of the chicken coop, it was able to pull up the wire. And the thing to note is the amount of wire it was able to pull up, plus the chicken that it took. The chicken it took was like 20 pounds roughly. Tells me it was probably someone's dog in the neighborhood. So I'm still debating what I'm going to do, but I'm thinking I'm going to do electric fence to keep these girls okay. But yeah, I mean, over 2 years and only lost one chicken. Not the worst. I mean, people lose a lot more in a much shorter time frame. And speaking of dogs, they've made so many pathways through our trees. Now, I don't mind too much because the cats actually use them quite often, but it is something to note out here is if you don't have fencing, people are just going to let their animals loose, and you got to deal with the consequences in the form of chickens. And why are you going into that crate? But, and this stuff too. And speaking of burn piles, it looks like we got something left over from the previous owner right here. Anyways, we've got these cottonwoods that are relatively tall. So this drip line completely broken, so I'm gonna have to get a new drip line put, and it is a very long row. Now my thoughts right now is I'm thinking about extending these cottonwoods all the way down across the field. Once I get to the back half though, I'm thinking about doing more evergreens that are very similar to what we have behind our house, and then doing another line so the evergreens go all the way, and you guys can't really see, but all the way here on the other side of the property. My thought process with this is, I mean, the wind is going to change direction all the time, but most of the wind comes from the front here and then also from the side. Cottonwoods are a great windbreak, so if I have the cottonwoods here on the front and then on the side, then that'll be a good windbreak, and then the pine trees will basically just be privacy. And this is also, you guys can see like the houses and stuff back there. That's where most of the development is happening behind us, so that'll give us privacy from a lot of the development. Something that I find hilarious is people think you need like a dog to have something that follows you around all the time. Cats do the same exact thing, except they also eat mice, and they also just stare into nothingness. I'm not sure what's happening here. And they don't require nearly as much food as dogs. They are really, really cool farm animals, whatever you want to call them. Anyways, fencing around the perimeter. That's why I gave you guys a vantage point. I need your recommendation. I'm thinking about doing electric fencing because we have that whole dog issue. But if you guys have recommendation of fencing that is not electric, that is better or just as good to keep dogs out, I'd really appreciate that. So we're gonna do like the whole field. We're gonna have a gate right here, and then it's gonna wrap around. So we're gonna have the yard fenced off from the field basically. But yeah, that's the next big thing is fencing. That's gonna be the most expensive project. Now, the next question for you guys is if we should upgrade to natural gas. The city is bringing natural gas lines out currently. This is obviously on propane. Propane is more expensive on a per gallon basis compared to natural gas, but it also is kind of more self-sufficient in a way, right? You still have to buy the propane, of course, but having the gas stored on your property versus having it at a centralized location. So do you guys think it's worth it? Is it worth it to just pay the extra money and keep doing the propane, or should I bring the gas lines over to the house? Let me know what you think on that. And here's kind of a look at the evergreens that we currently have in the backyard. These are about 25 years old, I think. So this will give you an idea of what the back half of the lot will look like, but obviously it'll take time for the trees to grow this big. Now, I know that's not the most exciting update on the planet, but you have to do boring things to lay the groundwork to be able to do the fun stuff, which is having a bunch of animals and farming. And so that will come in the future. Right now, we're just going to continue to lease the farm ground that we have to one of our neighbors so they can keep us in greenbelt status. We get some tax benefits because of that. So it gives us time and it gives us lower taxes. But the last thing that I want to mention is I really appreciate all the feedback you guys will give me in this video, and I really appreciate any suggestions on the dog situation. I'm trying to be as charitable as possible. I feel like I've been a good neighbor with this. I haven't complained to my neighbors once about their dogs, even though they just absolutely drive me crazy. Outside of the chicken thing, the dogs just like, they don't spend any time on our neighbor's property whatsoever. Like if our neighbors let their dogs go, they instantly run over to our property, which again, this is why I want to get fencing, and they just run around and they do dog stuff, right? They dig, they poop and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, fine, whatever. But they're also very aggressive. Now, again, I haven't complained because they haven't done anything yet that I can like 100% say that it was them. The chicken, I'm kind of like 95% convinced. But again, any recommendations on that so that I can fix that problem? Because once I get that problem fixed, then I feel like everything else will be kind of like smooth sailing from then. I'll see ya.